Revenue is vanity, margin is strategy, cash flow is power. Welcome to the Bottom Line Buzz, the podcast where business owners talk about what's really happening behind the scenes. Smart money, real strategy, no smoke.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you happen to be. Joe Zahitis with the Bottom Line Buzz. I'm here again with my amazing co-host,
the real queen bee of this podcast, Jen Macris.
Queen Bee. We're still playing into that. It's awesome. And today we've got with us on the show, do you want to be PK or do you want to be Paul today?
Let's go with PK.
Got PK. PK from Sister Mercy. So PK, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, awesome. Happy to be here. Happy to, anytime, Joe, we get to, chop it up. It's always a good time. So
two of my, and I say that, you start sounding like those classic Hollywood types. Two of my favorite people, genuinely. Two of my favorite people. So
for real.
PK, tell us about you. Short version.
Short version is I started my career as a sociologist. Spent my first 10 years of my career doing ethnography work, a lot of qual. I was studying digital culture and was kind of one of the first academics, kind of pre-platform dominance in the not to age myself, but I was like studying moos and message boards and everything else. I translated that into a career in advertising. In about 2012, I moved across the country, and I live in Canada. I'm in Hamilton, Ontario right now, just outside of Toronto, if anyone's been up here. I and some agency friends co-founded Sister Mercy in 2018. So we're now in our 8th year of operation with a heavy focus on brand development and strategy-led creative in the cannabis industry and other now regulated vice categories we do in Canada, iGaming, some bev alcohol, things like that. But most of our work has been in cannabis, and I think that's kind of what we're known for.
I love hearing people's histories in life because you get to hear kind of what they did before we all do what we do now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It scares me how smart most of the people I'm in the room with. I'm like,
yeah, right.
Brainiac. I love it. So then you would probably remember your IRC chat handle then? Do you still have those?
Oh yeah, it's the same one.
Mine.
I mean, I'm so old, man, that when I got my Twitter account in 2007, I was one of the first 2,000 people after the big South by Southwest things. I was like early adopter. And my x.com, the everything app handle, previously known as Twitter, is the same as my IRC from when I was in high school.
Awesome. I love it. I opened up a recent logbook, paper logbook, because that's where I kept everything. And I opened up right inside the front corner as my IRC chat handle, and I'm like, oh my God.
I lived on IRC in the 90s, man. Yeah.
Sorry, Jen,
okay, so for those that are a little not in the know and digitally,
geeky,
at a deficit.
Nerdy.
Can I get a definition, please? What is IRC? And let's start there.
Internet relay chat. So think Messenger. That's just all it is. It's just Messenger.
It was actually Twitter before Twitter was Twitter, and chat before chat was chat.
Sure.
I mean, this is going way back.
Yeah.
OG.
At the time when you were like to download again, not to age myself too much, but like to download an image, one image, a JPEG would take you like half an hour.
Yes.
And at the time, the IRC was like really fast and nimble, and it was like the most real-time thing you kind of get on the internet. And because at the time I was also touring in like punk bands and stuff, and there was a lot of
he's a musician, like legit OG. It's awesome.
I mean, I saw the wall of vinyls and the CDs, so our listeners don't get to have that privilege. But but when I heard Sister Mercy and the band on your hat, I'm like, this guy is an artist and all the things. So
I've also run 2 record labels in my career before advertising. I've played in a bunch of bands. This is like the 3 albums that I'm the most kind of proud of. Top is a band called Mile and Sheaths. I was the drummer and I sang. And the other 2 are Ketamine's records. I had a pop band called the Ketamines in the, before like the Elon Musk thing made it cringe. It was like Ketamines was like a pop band. Our claim to fame is we sold a song to Target, and there's, Denizen Jeans had a Mom Jeans launch, and they used a Ketamine's track as the bed music for that. It gave us a lot of money, and we toured on that for like a year. It was awesome.
That is so cool.
We're in the presence of famous people.
Yeah, we are. Okay, I have another question. Another question. So the myelin sheath and the ketamine, from a medical perspective, those that have neurodegenerative that one diseases that affect the myelin in the brain, there's also been studies about how ketamine and these sort of psychoactive medicines can help regenerate that. So is there any sort of synergy there for you in this creating the name? Okay, tell me more.
So those bands came out when I was doing my PhD.
Okay.
And I was
the PhD Joe.
No, I got that.
Add it to the list.
In his spare time, he also runs the International Space Station. I'm just going to throw that.
Yeah, not anymore. I've stepped down from that. I got to I'm slowing down in my old age.
There you go.
I actually don't have a PhD. I'm a PhD candidate. I have a thesis. I will never defend it. It's just kind of gone past it. So I'm what you call an ABD, all but dissertation, which means I've defended. I could go back at 60 and defend and do whatever, but I basically, sorry, this is totally off topic, but
this is great.
My band started doing well. We were on you guys know Pitchfork? Like we were on like festivals. We had a booking agent in California, Annie Southworth, RIP. We were on like the same roster as bands like the OCs, like the San Francisco psych garage scene. We were kind of part of that. Ty Segall, all these other bands. And I kind of just was like, at that point, I think I was like 6 years into my PhD, and I handed in a draft, and it was like 1,400 pages, and it was like, I will only read 400. And so I just was like, yeah, I'm out. Then I talked my way into advertising, actually, literally like that same year. I dropped out of my PhD program. I stopped teaching. I was teaching digital culture, mass communication, sociology of health, all these things. And my PhD work was all, to answer your question on this, I was doing a lot of like sociology of science and technology was like my main focus. And Myelin Sheaths were a band. They were like a first band that got picked up by an American label. Like we're a little band from the prairies at the time, so it was pretty big for us. And that band broke up right after that album came out. I love that record a lot, but it broke up immediately, so we didn't get a chance. And then the members kind of reformed under the Ketamines, and it was kind of like a continuation of the project. If that makes sense.
That's really, really cool.
I can't. I'm kind of in awe of the halo. That's
Come on, it's not that. Like I'm a failed academic. I'm a failed musician. There's another way to look at all of this.
I am reconsidering all of my life choices in the presence of godliness.
Well, you know what? Honestly, like I remember, this is actually about Sister Mercy, and there was a time at the time I was the VP of strategy at Cossette, which in Canada at the time was like the biggest creative agency. I was so excited to go work there. And how I got into weed was actually I was at Cossette leading strategy for canopy growth, pre-legalization in Canada. Sure. So we were doing like tweed. We worked on Seth Rogen's houseplant brand. We did a brand with Snoop Dogg called Leafs by Snoop. The Health Canada came and changed it because it couldn't do a celebrity endorse, and it was LBS. He later left that and did another brand that failed, which is called like LBBS, like dog pounds. Anyways. And when I was at, where was I going?
You started at one of the biggest places in Canada.
We'll
bring you back on track. Don't worry about it, buddy. I got you.
Thank you. This is so embarrassing. My God, my stoner brain is just like, So anyways, I was like, I talked my way. I'm in this agency and I'm running strategy, and that experience really like opened up everything for me. So it was just like a very kind of like hop, skip, and a jump from where I'm at now. But I think it was like right place at the right time at Cossette, being able to work on those brands. And then, the VCs come calling because they're like, we're going to start 7 brands a year and we need someone to do that. We're not paying agency fees because at the time, like, that the money Canopy paid to Cossette was not minimal. We were doing everything, media, data, like connecting all their data information on the back end. building net new brands, building their beverage category. We were like, I think one summer I spent 4 months in focus group rooms listening to people talk about, hypothetically, if cannabis was legalized or when it's legalized, would you take this product or this product, and things like this. And so it was like a very early indoctrination of like weed and stuff. And it was actually perfectly timed for me because it's the intersections of all the things I love, which is weed. First of all, I've always loved weed. I'm a musician. I've had weed in my life, my cannabis in my entire life, and as a musician especially. We'd go play in the U.S. and where the rules are a little different. Canada's a little more liberal with cannabis at the time. And we go in the States, we're like, anybody holding? And they'd be like, who's asking? Oh, we're just from Canada. We're called the ketamines, man. Like, it's okay. We're cool.
Yeah.
Like, you can,
what
you
part
can
did you
trust
not
us.
get in that? Did you not look at the band name?
We literally played South by Southwest with a band called the K-Holes, which, if you know about ketamines, you go too much ketamine, you go into a K-hole. So someone built this bill, and we thought it was funny, right? So we go up to those guys. We're like, hey, chance you guys got weed? Because we just flew in and we were like kind of jonesing, and they were like, you shouldn't ask that out loud. Like, it's just so scary. We're in Texas, bro. Like, you're not in Canada anymore, Anyways.
That's awesome. Well, it's the nature of what you bring out. It's awesome. I mean, the backstory is fabulous. Certainly paints a picture for kind of dialogues we've already had, and it plays directly into the nature of this kind of digital marketing, cannabis industry focused piece. So we've been talking about this relative to kind of where the industry was, where it's kind of gone, where it kind of is. And then some of this dialogue, and then what we're looking to focus on is what I'd love to hear PK's perspective, where it's going. What do you think are some of the drivers and some of the roadblocks that we're going to see? And how would you paint a picture towards operators, vertically integrated or not, supporting the nature of all the things we've screwed up?
And I want to build on that question because it was loaded, and I'm going to add another layer of loaded inquiries. How do you talk to that specific to the Canadian market and the U.S. market?
Good point. That's a good one. I like
right?
that. It's going to make this a long show, but that's okay.
Yeah, right. Well, and we're kind of like, we're in an interesting position because Sister Mercy, we have operations both sides of the border. Alison Disney runs our U.S. side of the business. She's now on the NCIA board. She ran an agency called Receptor Brands. Receptor kind of folded and they came over to Sister Mercy, and we've been kind of collaborating with them from day one, really. Or not day one, I guess, like it was for the last couple of years anyways. So we've seen the kind of like start-stops in not only Canada, U.S., but like regionally in the U.S. as well, right? You see you kind of see the kind of cycle happening market by market. We saw it in Canada, I think, in a different way because it was federally legalized.
Right.
So you could grow in New Brunswick and sell it in British Columbia if you wanted, and we could transfer it across markets, which is like in and of itself not nothing compared to what happens in the U.S., right? With state-by-state restrictions and all the rest of it. But somehow all of these markets still drive towards price compression. We all start to go towards oversupply. We all start to go to like a lot of fly-by-night operators who are here today and gone tomorrow. And the more that happens, the more resistance you see in some of these groups on like actually delivering on a customer promise or like delivering product that hits at a proper spec. And then you have the other side of it, which are the people that are just like, this is our lives. We are dedicated to growing the best possible thing. And then without the ability to openly communicate the value of certain brands. In Canada, the marketing regs are quite restrictive, which is kind of why we exist, is that when I was at Cossette, I have people who didn't know cannabis that well. And a lot of creatives are kind of energized by awards and things like that. Once they saw that we couldn't do anything in mass, it was kind of like I was training freelancers every week on like, okay, here's the Cannabis Act, here's what you can't do. Now we got to come up with a campaign, yada, yada, yada. And then it was hard because you're just redoing that. And it was like, okay, we could build an agency where we just have that ongoing and have that regulatory. Like we had a lawyer in our midst for the first 5 years of our operations, helping us with what we can and can't do and say. But I feel like all of that has been abandoned now, totally abandoned. Like it's just make money today. If you last, you last. Like it's just kind of, you kind of, in the Canadian market, you've seen a lot of people just kind of like throw up their hands and go like, we'll do some sales, but you know, that's about it.
The lose sight of the long game, right? It's the instant gratification, and that's applicable to across any industry, right? Or even in human instinct, right? That instant gratification.
Absolutely.
So losing sight of that.
Well, and then in Canada, the drive was for everybody to go public really fast. And that was great when shares were like, the Canopy at one point was like $65 a share.
Right.
So that was big money for people. So they're like, okay, but then as soon as as soon as it's not becoming hypothetical and you have to go into this other world, you're chasing quarterly revenue all the time. And then that's what kills you, you know, like.
You brought up an interesting topic that I'd like to get your perspective of, given that you cross border a little bit. In the nature of, it sounds like what I'm hearing, and you're confirming, or you're going to tell me the nuance there. What you're confirming is you have, call it cross border, within the various provinces of Canada, product can move freely.
Yeah,
within the states, it can't. Within Canada, restrictive marketing. Within the states, same thing. Within Canada, you ended up with price compression issues, even though you could move it cross-border. Within the states, we're having the same problem, even though it's within borders. Do you think, as a marketing guy, is this a function of the nature of, not the product, but the nature of just human business merging market? Because you've got two very distinct, different models, and yet they're having the same exact problems.
Yeah, it's funny because we've been able to be on the front lines of like certain markets opening up over the last 8 years, right, in the US, and seeing kind of like, okay, we're at this stage, you're over here. That was great for me as someone who's a brand builder, because I was like, there's lots of opportunity to build new brands when there's a new state opening up, because at least with New York, it's like we're going to give our locals some runway before we let all the competition in, right? Like ideally, right? Yeah, it's an interesting question, because I do think that it is a factor of the competition and an undifferentiated market. And what I mean by that, like if you're selling vape, right, you're in kind of spec within, 20% on THC. Maybe you got a CBN or a CBD vape and you've differentiated that. But then someone else has a CBD vape. We figured out how to fix the crystallization problem in a CBD vape. So we're all going to do it now, and blah, blah, blah. And immediately everybody's got the same products. In edibles, you're a gummy. A gummy is a gummy and a gummy. In Canada, it's mandated. Your max THC is 10 milligrams per package. Now they've done this really stupid thing in Canada where you can have 10 individually packaged gummies in a box, so you can get like one thank you, like, well, that's going to help everything. Like the same government that regulated out plastic grocery bags here is now mandating the cannabis industry just like plastics up everything.
It's a way of zooming the system. You can't have more than 10 per package. Okay, we'll individually package them. It's like, now we're zooming the system. It's like there was a reason for that.
Right. So, but you get that competitive drive in an undifferentiated space. What are the variables you can control? If you're a marketer, what are your 4 Ps, right? Price, place, promotion. Promotions are not regulated. Like you can't incentivize people to buy it. So you end up with price as we're the one thing that anybody without a business knowledge or sense can just say, well, these guys are at $9 a gram. Let's go to $8.50 or $8.75, and then someone's like, okay, now we're going to go to $8.70, and now it's like you just kind of like chase each other off of a cliff, because cannabis people are not typically higher income as a general rule. We have a lot of demographic data on like who your audience is. I live in Hamilton, which is a steel town, much like Pittsburgh. It's like you go to the closest one to the steel mills on a Friday payday. It's lined up out the gate. This is like a blue collar drug in a lot of ways. A blue collar commodity. And so if you're going to give up on brand because someone in your CFO or whatever goes, I don't see the immediate ROI, and I have to solve this problem of developing quarterly revenue and delivering against our targets so our share doesn't drop even further, then what other choice do you have? Because as we know from brand science, like, Binet and Field, the long and the short of it, brands grow through long-term brand building and short-term activation.
Right, differentiation, right.
And the cannabis industry has said, oh, well, I'm going to plug my ears on the brand growth and I'm just going to do the short-term activation because I could do that. And then you look at the brands that have invested in brand. The brands that have invested in brand is like a weird way to say it. I would say Jeter is a good example. Wild is a great example. Wana. These are companies that have built a real brand that they can now translate market by market by market, and everywhere they go, they're dominant. You don't have to be like a genius to see that playbook is like focus, simplify, develop your brand, deliver on the consumer experience equals growth and options. And yet everyone else is just so focused on the short term that it becomes kind of like a losing game. It's like a game for losers.
The long game of staying true to who you are, even within the cannabis space, is obviously the winning play, and not a lot are not doing that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
exactly.
Where do you think that leadership of those companies you referenced, like leadership and brand loyalty from a consumer perspective, how do you think those play into kind of what you just shared?
I think that it's very interesting, right? Like I remember the early days in Canada anyways, it was like all these awesome digital marketers and CPG folk and like lawyers, like all the cool, like everyone was like, I'm going to make a new career in cannabis, right? And then 2 years in, they're all gone. And it's like totally like the suits left the scene. I think it's a lack of education on and a pressure on delivery, right? It's not I have a lot of empathy for people running a cannabis company because it's a lot. You have to do a lot with less and less resources. And I have to do things that I can show my shareholders that I'm doing to build the company, which is why you see a lot of like, BS around acquisitions and all this other kind of like shuffling the cards to like trick you. In Canada, there's like almost a joke every time that one of the big LPs in Canada, I won't name them, but you can immediately, if you know this, you'll know who it is.
We prefer not to be sued, but thank you.
I prefer not to be sued, but every quarter they're like, well, U.S. legalization is right around the corner, and if that happens, then we're gold. It's just like everybody's betting on someone else to make the move, and it becomes like you just run out of moves at a certain point. And then those brands, like we worked with Wild, we helped them enter the Canadian market. That was a real eye opener for me because at the time I was working with all these vertically integrated. In Canada, we call them LPs. You guys in the U.S. it's MSO. We got retail and we got all these different sub brands and everything else. Wild is like we do one thing really well, and then we're dominant. They're dominant in Canada, right? Like it's not a secret. You put out a good product that people like. If you're competing against 30 other gummies that all have 10 THC and they're all a berry variant, you know what I mean? Sugar, non-sugar becomes a non-issue. It's what can I get for the cheapest price? Because I don't care. Just get me stoned.
Right.
Versus like I know with Wild, like it's probably going to be higher quality inputs, and I feel like I can trust it better. So like they win my dollar every time.
And I don't know, Jen, I don't know if we had this on the last podcast. Obviously, we're doing more than one of these. It becomes it's a marketing. It's a business thing. The minute you try to be all things to all people, you're nothing to nobody. Right. And I think this in that context, because I see it from the payment side, so I only see the payment element of it. So hearing this is awesome. But I've seen a very, very similar thing. Welcome to my 30-year career of chasing the dollar down in the payment space. That's what we've been doing for 30 plus years in the payments industry. But the minute you differentiate yourself in the marketplace of, look, I'm not the cheapest, I'm not the most expensive, but I'm not the cheapest, and here's why. A whole bunch of people are not going to be your clients. Guess what? They were never going to be your clients. So why are you chasing them?
Right. And this is where you get into all this like nonsense of like, okay, our number one thing is a vape. Okay, now we're going to do concentrates. It's like, you're going to do concentrates, but you're going to do concentrates badly. You know what I mean? Like there are companies, that's all they do. And you've got the hash dude who's got like 30 years legacy experience and they're putting out fire every month. It's like, you're going to have a skew. And then the other weird thing in Canada that's different, that's worth mentioning for an American audience, especially, is that we have to sell through government boards, right? So we can ship it anywhere. Like I'm a brand in Ontario, I can sell in any province, but I first have to convince the government stakeholders to allow us into that market. So there's all this other kind of, fuckery. Sorry, you can bleep that. Like, there's something else going on with the government. It's kind of like
that actually plays into two. It was only 2 articles and 1 small post I read in this topic, and the nature of the Canadian market as much as it is federally legal. By virtue of the nature of how legal cannabis dispensaries or players have to then not only grow and or sell a product, it limits the scope of the different types of products. And a lot of people, I've heard, that's what the articles were saying, are going back to black market because it's not because they don't want to buy legal stuff. They want a particular strain or what they want, and the players are playing to the largest possible audience in the legal market in terms of what they're growing and selling, and they can't get some of that, consumer grade, what do you want to call it?
Well, yeah. And at like higher dose edibles and like actual like flower that's not been irradiated and like all of this other stuff. So I live in Hamilton, and I live in a kind of an old neighborhood, kind of in the steel mill area, but it's like where all the steel guys used to live. So every basement has a side door with like a little shower area for the steel guy to wash up before they go upstairs.
Before he goes in the house,
like
right?
These kind of things,
I
right?
love it. That's awesome.
To kind of color it, right? You've got this scenario where, wait, where was I going? Joe, help me. Sorry.
That's okay. We were talking about the nature of the fact
God.
that no, it's okay because I also forgot it too. You
Your
don't
legacy.
have those. Well, the boutique players. Everyone is playing to such a big market. You don't have any boutique players. That's a problem.
All right, cut.
No, we don't do that on this show, but that's okay.
Okay, so in my neighborhood, I live next to this street. It's called Ottawa Street, and it's kind of like every town has like the kind of like cool coffee shops and record stores, and there's like a bookshop I work at sometimes. I help my friends out there.
That's awesome.
City and the City Books, shout out. But there's also like next to the artisanal butcher is an unregulated dispensary that in Canada, or especially in this area, it's like there's like a indigenous sovereign land argument that they're making, and so there's a big sign on the thing of like this dispensary is run by sovereign peoples and yada yada, and it's been operating on this main best part of that neighborhood for 5 years. At one point when the boom was happening in cannabis, when I lived in this neighborhood, in my neighborhood I had 10 licensed dispensaries. Now I have 2 licensed dispensaries, but I have 5 unregulated dispensaries that were all formerly regulated dispensaries that have turned the signs backwards and they've gone evil. And, like I go talk to those guys because like I'm a sociologist first and foremost. My business is understand people and market and like all the rest of it. I've become very good friends with the guy that runs the indigenous unregulated smoke shop. And I choose that word unregulated very carefully because I think that it's black market or illegal if you look at the way that they rolled out legalization as just a different form of prohibition, and that there is a actual gripe to be made with, like, you go back to, if you've ever read Box Brown's Cannabis in America, it's like a graphic novel. If you haven't read it, it's like the most eye-opening history of prohibition in the US or whatever. And a lot of the models that we're operating in now, it's just like, we'll tax the hell out of everybody as a way of making those businesses not viable. So it's kind of like a rebellion against that. And those guys do banger business and they have good products. Like, that's the thing, right? Like, just make it all legal and let the market decide. But right now, the unregulated ones can price at whatever they want. They don't have the overhead of security and all the other things that a regulated dispensary would have. So a lot of these guys just kind of went like, we're back to the gray market because, like, sorry, we're not able to make a profit here at all. It shouldn't be this hard.
It's very interesting how the gray market there's a reinsurgence of, right? Because we've had the unregulated, our legacy friends. Sometimes people are of the belief we got to keep our legacy partners in business still because of the quality of product. Absolutely. But the gray market has been a topic of conversation. I was just at Ignite It in New Jersey, and the gray market was a big conversation. And it's interesting how it differs in Canada versus the States, because in New York, for example, you go down that main drag and you have 3 licensed shops and let's say 3 licensed shops and 6 unregulated. Whereas the regulators were really coming down on those shops and they were closing them. And so it's just been interesting to see the difference in regulated markets, how they're handled first and foremost, how those unregulated stores are opening and now closing. But then again, the reinsurgence of this gray market and how they're able to operate. I think it's very interesting. The sovereign nation, is it the guise of a sovereign, like, are they actual indigenous folks running that particular smoke shop? Like, and what is the difference between smoke shop and right. So, and in Florida, I'm in Florida, right? So there's been a big push on shutting down these smoke shops. They're regulated by the Department of Ag and, excuse me. So they can have these low dose products or these, intoxicating hemp products. And there's been, bills on the table to close these operators because, again, they found the gray area and they're infringing upon these MSOs that are, have to spend millions of dollars on an annual basis for their license. So I think it's very interesting that the defragmenting segments of the regulated and then the unregulated.
And and the gray market is an area where brands don't really exist, right? A lot of it is like stolen IP. It's like, we got our Skittles, Weedles, or whatever. It's like Lucky Kronk. Like it's just like all this kind of stuff.
Right.
They're not having to play the same game. They don't have to play by the same rules. They don't have to pay the same fees. It's a viable business, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're gonna see on Main Street like this big dispensary opening with no comp, they've never been shut down as far as I know, then why not? And so now in our neighborhood we got shrooms stores popping up everywhere. It's the same kind of thing, right? Yeah. So it's an interesting time because I don't there's crooks on both sides of the thing. Sure, for real. Sure. I've been super ripped off by, people in the regulated space, and there's no love lost there sometimes, but mm-hmm. It's not up to me to say either. My job is to okay, you're a regulated brand. I look at the opportunity in the US with the the hemp rules changing in the fall. As a huge opportunity. We're already hearing from hemp operators who are trying to look, okay, how do we go mainstream? How do we do this? There are ways for the operating bodies to kind of clamp down on this. It just doesn't seem a priority to anybody, right? This is weed. This is just leave them alone. We don't know. Just let them fight it out, right? It's kind of the attitude, regardless of where you are in Canada or the U.S., right?
So again, this is the Joe perspective only. By the way, we do not give legal advice on this show. I'm just going to point that out there to people. In terms of it would be my guess that someone in that organization, and I'm winking for those who are listening only, there's probably someone in some of those that does have that lineage going back. Otherwise, there would be a challenge even in a Canadian environment. We certainly have that here in the States. But when you look at the nature of the product set, this is where I was getting to at this point. If you look at the product in an unregulated gray market versus regulated, it would be one thing to say, I am going to a pharmacy to get a prescription drug because of the nature of the dosage is such that if I took this the wrong way, I could really screw stuff up. The nature of the product does not change, to the best of my knowledge. Matter of fact, some of the regulateds do a better job of making it worse because they're obviously trying to boost everything, versus the unregulateds, which while they don't have the brand infrastructure behind them, they're looking to put out a product based on the brand of their store to say, I want consistency, and that's what my consumer's looking for, not necessarily the highest dosage, the most THC, the most whatever. It's just a consistency, but the product at the end of the day is the same.
Well, and then you look at the playbooks a lot of operators, both sides of the border do, which is the audience has been trained on novelty, right? Mm-hmm. So I've always got to have something new. I don't know, the last time I heard the half-life for a pre-roll SKU is 9 months right now on average. Meaning in 9 months, we got to have a different blend in there or a different, we have to have a different flower in there because people are already going to be
plateauing or falling off already, right?
Yeah, so you're chasing the dragon there. But what you're doing also, and this is the point I'm building on with you, Joe, is saying your customer who's come to rely on the one thing that okay, I've got sciatica. I tried this strain. This has actually been awesome for me. And then you go and the dispensary is gone. You can't ever buy it again.
Yep.
The brand's gone out of business, or they've switched it up, or they've just renamed it, which is something that happens all the time. And then you've kind of, again, going back to like, why are you having the resurgence of a gray market? It's like, I kind of know what I'm going to get every time I go into that place. Like I buy edibles there all the time actually, because I like those edibles more. And it's like the value is a lot better. I can get like, 1,000 milligrams for like $20 versus like 10 milligrams for $5. Like, it's like the math doesn't math for me as a consumer. I do buy a lot of regulated too, just because of my business and working with certain brands and stuff. Push comes to shove, that's what I go in there for. And I know those guys, and they're all like, are they indigenous? I don't know. It's not my maybe, but they are there out of protest for sure. There is a political mandate for them. And then the other part of this, and Joe, we were talking about this before. If you don't mind, if I bring this into an AI thing.
Oh no,
right?
we're now we're bumping up against the time. I don't want to go too long, and we're gonna have to have PK back straight away. He and I are doing a radio show together. Straight up.
I can go along. Sorry, Jen. I'm not overdoing that.
I would like to take it into an AI element, because from my personal perspective, and this is Jen and I've talked about it, and we've talked about it with others on the show, I like AI. I like the nature of AI. I like it as a research assistant. My challenge with it is in both the payment space, which is where I do most of my research, but then more specifically within the cannabis space, I find it unreliable because there isn't enough empirical data in the market out on the world other than a lot of lies. So it can't really get at good, that I've seen, good data.
Yeah. So I've been, one of the things as like an agency that's specialized in emerging markets is we actually picked up a few AI companies along the way here, and have been able to work with some really interesting AI PhDs that are like, trying to take it beyond chatbot and into like enterprise level data infrastructure and things like this. So, shout out to Mosaic Mosaic AI as a brand we're working with out of, they're Canadian Israeli, interesting company. They're there as like a kind of like help your support teams access information in real time. So if you're on the phone, I got a problem, you have all the information you need. You don't have to search for things, and the flowcharts are gone and things like that. Anyways, I'm bastardizing it, but that's kind of in a short way.
Great research assistant, which I think it's great even already, but keep going, yeah.
As a qualitative sociologist, AI is awesome. I've never had a more powerful qualitative analytics tool in my entire life. This unlocks qualitative in a way that has never operated. So not only working with data sources, whatever, the stuff I'm onto is like, I go in, like I just did this for a brand in Michigan where we scraped all of the data from the Michigan subreddit for 1 year, and we built a competitive map based on sentiment within the subreddits, and then tied that to sales, like certain sales documents data that we had, retail data. So you get a sense of, does hype translate into sales? And it does. Brands that face persistent reputational issues, and that's talked about on Reddit. That's where people talk about it. You can see the decline in sales. You see how bud tenders use Reddit as an example, as a way to inform themselves on what's good and what's not good, because they can't sample every SKU that they have in the store. So they rely on experiential data from other Redditors reviewing certain products, and that becomes part of the mindset. That's valuable data that's sitting there. AI for that kind of stuff, like analytics, I have a system I call Qlytics, qualitative analytics, that is just like taking that unstructured data. Like a lot of people are doing this, right? And turning it into trust metrics, and turning it into, we do a campaign before, during, and after effectiveness measures. There are good ways to use AI to further the goal of the cannabis industry. Where it's being used incorrectly, in my vision as a brand person, is that a lot of companies are looking at their marketing budget. Like, okay, so for example, the cannabis industry on average is spending 92% less on marketing than a normal business on average. A lot of that is going into, you look at all these brands' Instagram pages, it's AI slop. You look at their sales sheets, it's AI slop. You look at the packaging, it's AI slop. And you can see it across the room. And now here's the problem, right? you were talking before about differentiation. I've kind of like in cannabis, I don't like to talk about differentiation because it's too, oh, we have to be differentiated. Well, what does that mean? We're flower, right? Indica or sativa? No, not really. We don't even know. You know, all of this stuff kind of gone, right? All of our typologies on the way we treat these products is pretty undifferentiated for the most part. And what you get is like higher or lower quality perception, higher or lower brand sentiment, all of these other things, right? Okay. So I don't like to talk about differentiation because it's not the right challenge. The challenge is I think more aptly, I got a really awesome book by Jenny Romaniuk on distinctive brand assets, the DBA method, which is like distinctiveness in the market. Look at Wild. You see Wild, you go in and you know it's Wild across the hall. That's a distinctive brand asset, and the way you can deliver brand assets on all these things. The problem with AI slop in brand creation is that these guys are all making the same bullshit. It's like an alien with a joint, it's like there's space theme, man, bro. Like it's like, first of all, it's like grade A. It's a grade 1 level art projects, but you can make it look polished. So I'm down on it there. I'm down on it from the perspective of doing a lot of Reddit analysis. You see a lot of people talking about brands using AI in a derogatory way, saying the one thing that you see across markets, and I look at industry like Michigan, Illinois, Canada, Ontario, like there's all these different regional subreddits that are focused on cannabis. And when the AI conversation comes up, there's inevitably a conversation now that says, what other corners are you skipping? So if I'm going into a dispensary and I see 3 brands and they're all made with AI, right? They all kind of look the same to me. Like they're not distinctive because they look like AI brands, and an AI brand looks like an AI brand looks like an AI brand. You can have 30 of them, and the more you get, actually, the worse it gets. Because if there's one company doing AI slop, then fine, you're fine. But once there's 2, then it's like who's who, you know what I mean? And as this picks up, you're in this situation where it's almost this uncanny valley of like fake brands and corner cutting. And I think that if advertising and marketing is it's a signal of we have our shit together to your audience. An advertising campaign doesn't necessarily work to say, I got to go to the store and buy this. But when you're in the store, there's a memory structure unlocked that these guys actually are, if they have their stuff together to do an interesting ad that I remember, then I think maybe I will try it.
My input on that would be, and you're the marketing guy, so I'm going with you. I'm just digging all of this. But if I were to say it from my perspective, my perception of it is, to your point, an AI-generated anything is an average of an average of an average. So they all start looking the same after a while. But it does play back into my differentiation, because in the context of Wild, which we're talking about, we're giving them way too much play. We should ask them for some sponsorship here, but that's okay.
I love Wild though. Like, and they're not my client either. They're not my client right now either.
We don't care. But if you look at that, they're, again, from a branding perspective, they've stuck with it. Now, it was probably created before or not by an AI, but back to the branding and the AI part, it would be my belief. You talk about spending 92% less. Okay, where are you spending money? You're spending money on just out of school, relatively young, doe-eyed. That's fine. We need those as well in life and in the workforce as well. That is now being put in charge of both social media and branding, and their only tool, brand new, no legs, no street cred, is to go to some system and have it build it for them because they're under pressure to do a lot of them. And now all of a sudden you get this generic average of an average of an average coming out, and that then, because from the top of the house, and this is where I fault leadership, we talked about this on the last podcast, it's not a function of the individuals trying to get the job done. Sometimes it's leadership. Leadership, at the end of the day, doesn't care. Because from their perspective, to your point, a brand is a brand is a brand is a brand. We don't care. We look like everybody else. That's fine. We'll make it up in numbers. No, you won't.
If I could tell you all of the CEOs that I've met with where, and this was especially early days, and I would go in and I'm like, I'm the brand guy, yeah, blah, 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 And they're like, I don't believe in brand. Those people are all gone, right? 100% of those people that cut corners, 100% of the early adopters of AI in the Canadian market are out of business. And then there's this I had some stats on this that I pulled up here. The concept experience gap is destroying customer trust. 86% of customers cite authenticity as a major driver in purchasing decision. 55% report discomfort with AI-generated creative assets. That's more than half your audience that looks at it. And as much as these guys are on Twitter talking to themselves and hyping themselves, like, look at this cool thing I did. Like, it's Obama and he's smoking a joint. You know, it's like, okay, cool. But like, nobody wants it is what the thing is. And we had a client we were doing social media for, Instagram, things like that. They wanted to experiment with AI stuff. Within 2 weeks, shut it down because the consumers were all like, hire a designer, you bastards. You know, like cannabis people are community minded. And the community includes artists. It's not just business people.
There's a little more of, and I say this with love in my heart, there's more of an altruism that comes to the nature of the cannabis as an industry. So to be using, to your point, AI slop, there is a consumer base and an industry that's looking at this. That is not our mandate, nor our draw, nor our interest. And if that's the path you're going to go, you actually get a negative mark in that regard.
It's a trust repellent.
Correct. Oh, on that topic, and then we're going to have to wrap this up because we're going long, and we're going to have PK on again because we're going to talk about other shit as well. But
yeah, I could go for hours.
I know, we all could. I know Jen could too. Under the header of trust, this was something that came up in an interview that I watched recently, and I truly believe it. I think it's the nature of AI, not a problem. The nature of AI, not an issue. The nature of AI and so much of it that you cannot trust, believe anything you see, hear, or otherwise on the internet anymore is going to do one thing, and I love it. And I love it in the context of this podcast as well. The nature of what I call belly-to-belly transactions with people doing business with people is going to be the only way that it goes forward, because the minute you get out of this room with the three of us, you can't trust anything you see. So the only people that are going to do business long term, kudos to AI, it's going to force people, because it's going to be the only way to trust someone, is for us to do business belly to belly.
Yeah.
And if I could say one thing on that, because I know we are super going over, I will say there's an interesting thing happening right now, too, on the internet. As a sociologist who spent my life studying digital culture, the weed thing was awesome for me because it was like digital weed cultures are very vibrant and rich and plentiful. Like, you have no idea how many like slop Facebook groups I belong to are like 420 jokes and like just the worst of the worst of the worst. I love it. Give it to me all day long.
They're fun.
But they're fun, right? But I will say that there is this kind of like, there is still this kind of like authenticity, cultural aspect of our industry that you can't prompt. It's not a prompt. And when we go into like seeing how people are looking at big platforms like Facebook, Meta, Instagram, Twitter, everything's going back into Discord groups, Slack communities, WhatsApp groups. And I am seeing this new emergence of industry collaboration happening in these things. Within my agency advertising industry, I've got like multiple groups of different brand strategists from around the world, and the brightest of the brightest are in here behind closed doors where it's not competitive and it's more communal. And it's like literally like the conversations that I'm seeing happen in cannabis and other industries right now, as to your point, belly to belly, it's like trust becomes the like it becomes a resource that cannot be defined. And so it's like, I can't trust anybody as who they are. I look at these blue checks and like, you know, who is this guy? Oh, he's from another country and he's writing about MAGA all day. Okay, like whatever. He's trying to stir the pot. You go into these small groups and it's what you're saying. It's small trust. And you're seeing this kind of like new movement, I think, of collaboration.
Trust is in my mind, again, I've read this elsewhere, so I'm stealing it. Trust is the new currency. And you have to have the trust, and we're consuming in trust. That becomes a new currency. And to your point, Discord and other groups, Slack groups and stuff like that, you have actual people doing business with actual people. When you have some of the nature, and social media is anything but social in my mind, but the nature of those real dialogues, that's where this all happens. Hey, I got a question. How do we get a hold of PK? How do we find PK? Because PK, I love this. This is fabulous. I hope people have stuck around to the end for this one. This one's been good. How can I get a hold of you?
Sistermercy.com, PK Lawton. I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. I'll probably add you back. I always do. who am I to say no to a friend request on LinkedIn? You know what I mean? I'm also on Twitter and every other platform. I'm easy to find.
So under fundamentally
PK Lawton,
PK Lawton. Got it.
PKLawton.bandcamp.com. You can see like all of my demos since 1996, ketamines, You can find us on Spotify.
You can find him on MySpace as well.
Anyways.
Hit him up on an IRC chat if you really want to talk to him. Well, here's because I do want to close this one out just because we have to, unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure.
So now we know how to get a hold of. Thank you, PK, for being here. This has been an amazing conversation. We're going to have you back for some other stuff as well. So I appreciate you being here.
Anytime, guys.
Jen, final thoughts before we go?
I want to know, PK, what was your instrument or vocal ability? Like, what were you in these bands?
Okay. Century, Palm, I played bass. Mylan Sheets, I was the drummer and I sang. But we all sang, so it was kind of one of those like Beatles things. We're all like, I kind of play everything. And then because I also ran a recording studio and a label, I did a lot of like sessions where I was like, I'm sitting on guitar on this track or bass on this. So that part of my life has been very rich in music is awesome.
As much as I love PK, I hate him now because he is like a god. Jesus Christ, man. You do flipping everything. I love
so
it.
multiversatile in his education and his experience and his, his playtime, his recreational time. He enjoys the gummies. He enjoys the flower. He enjoys all of it. Everything. So he does not discriminate.
As we were,
Yes.
Like, we'll take it all. You know what I mean?
I love that. It was a pleasure. I can't believe we've never connected before. So
it's so great to chat with you, Jen. Thank you so much, guys.
Well, thank you both for being here. We will be back again. You're going to see lots more shows. You'll see PK again, I'm sure, in the near future. Thank you all for being a part of the Bottom Line Buzz.
That's today's buzz. If your business handles cash payments or compliance, this is your room. Like, subscribe, share, and remember, revenue is loud, but the bottom line is what counts.